We are 14 months into the Israeli army committing genocide against Palestinians. The genocides in Sudan and Congo have been happening for even longer. Please donate to one of the links in my bio, or if that's not possible, keep boycotting and keep sharing updates as well as these fundraisers. It is unconscionable that these atrocities are still ongoing, and for those of us who do not endure such circumstances, we must do what we can to help. COVID is still here. It's still dangerous even if you're healthy. It's still killing thousands of people every week and infecting and hospitalizing many more. There's a new vaccine for recent COVID variants that came out a few months ago, so now is a good time to get your booster if you have the ability and you haven't already done so. Bird flu is starting to become a concern as well. It's being found in dairy products, and there has been confirmed human-to-human spread. Please continue masking or start masking again if you've stopped. Hello, it's Rachel. So earlier this year, I watched the Newsreader, and I quickly became a little obsessed with Tim and Dale's dynamic. And I need to talk about them and why I'm convinced they're going to be Endgame before season 3 drops and potentially proves me wrong. Obviously, there will be spoilers for the show, but there are a lot of things that happen beyond their relationship. So I definitely still think it's worth a watch, even if you listen to my rambling first. Anyway, let's talk about my TimDale brain rot. So, first off, if you're here but you haven't watched the show, Dale is a junior reporter for News at 6 who desires to reach the position of newsreader, and Tim is a cameraman that he often works with. From their first scene together, it's clear that they have known each other for a while and are very comfortable with each other. Made even more obvious when Tim is the person who soothes Dale after his failed attempt at covering the news desk. Dale happens to be on the news desk as Helen and Jeff, the two newsreaders for News at 6, are currently unavailable. As a result of this, Dale and Helen start to spend more time together and quickly form a friendship, leading to rumors spreading in the office about the two of them being romantically involved. When Tim and Dale work together next time, we see the ease they have with each other start to mildly slip when Tim starts to tease Dale about the rumors regarding Helen. Dale tries his best to ignore this as he likes to keep his personal life private, and Tim quickly drops it, continuing to be a supportive and comforting presence when Dale gets nervous about doing his first live report, and Tim calms him down literal seconds before he goes on camera. Given these interactions we've seen in the first 2 episodes, it becomes very apparent that Tim is one of the only people that has this effect on Dale. At this point in the story, his only other close relationships appear to be Nolene and his mother, and his mother is not comforting in any way. Once the report is finished, Tim again attempts to tease Dale about his relationship with Helen, and when Dale again expresses discomfort, Tim invites him over to watch Halley's Comet in place of going to a colleague's party with Helen. Dale is very seriously considering the invitation and even takes a moment to secretly check Tim out as he leans close to Dale to grab a pad of paper so he can give Dale his number. And this is the moment when the insanity started for me. So it's now explicit that Dale feels an attraction towards Tim, and Tim's behavior is implying that he is probably interested in Dale. Again, attention is drawn to this dynamic a few scenes later when Dale rejects Helen's invitation to accompany her to said party, saying that he has plans already. As she prods to know who he will be spending time with, Dale relents and tells her that he'll be watching the comment with Tim and some of the other cameramen, to which Helen responds,
"You're gay Tim from camera."
Tim's not a homosexual.
All I'm saying is that every other guy in that camera department's checked me out except Tim.
And Dale, even with all his repression, is still planning on spending the evening at Tim's. The only reason he changes his mind is because his homophobic mother decides to start talking to him about the traumatic Adam event, TM. I'll give more details on that later. And Dale is clearly struggling with shame about this incident, so he panics and calls Tim, saying that he will be going to the colleague's party after all. This one decision propels the entire rest of the show, as this choice leads Dale to pursue a relationship with Helen. It becomes clear very quickly that Dale is desperate to attain a heteronormative life and bury the scandal that has plagued him for years. And while he very clearly cares about Helen and admires her, it is undeniable that all this baggage prompts him to initiate their first kiss. The next time we see Tim, he's again teasing Dale about his relationship with Helen, But now Dale can no longer deny the relationship, as there is a photograph of them kissing. As Tim fishes for details, they exchange these words.
Plus, I thought you said there was nothing going on.
Well, there wasn't.
But then things changed.
Yeah.
Guess that happens.
Guess so.
Dale's gulp before he agrees. Dale, you want him so bad. There is the implication of a mutual interest in that something easily could have happened if Dale had gone to Tim's, as well as Tim's palpable disappointment that the rumors are true. This sentiment is further reinforced when the two share a late-night conversation at the hotel pool, where Tim discloses that he's gay. To reciprocate Tim's trust, Dale discusses the confused feelings he has for Helen, one of multiple moments where he chooses to confide in Tim over the other people in his life. Also, I need to point this out really quick. Look at Tim's face when he sees Dale's approaching him. Like, they both want each other so bad. Oh my god. After this, things seem to have returned to the normalcy pre-Helen and Dale dating. Tim and Dale are doing a puff piece at a hotel bar when suddenly there's an explosion at a nearby police station. Dale quickly jumps into reporting, and Tim is right there with him, keeping a cool head and being reliable, while the other crew members are in distress. There's even a moment when they have broadcasting difficulties, and Tim is the only person on the crew who manages to fix the issue. They are a team and fully working together to deliver this report that everyone at News at 6 is impressed by. After this highly intense and emotional day, Tim and Dale find themselves alone at the abandoned hotel bar, with the excuse to grab the equipment that was left behind in the chaos. And Dale, presumably still coming down from the adrenaline high, gives Tim this look. They're in an abandoned building. They could have died during this report. The sexual tension is through the roof, and they kiss. And this moment, wow. I literally held my breath the first time I watched this kiss because there's just so much passion. Like, it could not be more night and day, the difference in physicality between Dale Helen and Dale Tim. Anyway, as I've alluded to, Dale is insanely repressed, and he quite literally runs away from Tim after this. The next day, Tim is attempting to ignore Dale, but Dale seeks him out and begs Tim not to say anything about the kiss, paranoid about more attention being brought to his personal life. Dale even says that he was in such a state that he would have kissed anyone, cruelly minimizing their relationship up to this point. And, good God, Tim is so much better than me, I would have started throwing hands. Tim knows it's bullshit, but he can also tell how terrified Dale is, so he reassures him that he will stay quiet. The two of them seem to no longer be working together on reports after this, as Dale is assigned to interview a woman with AIDS, and a different cameraman is on the assignment with him. Unfortunately, Lindsay, the head of the newsroom, botches this report and turns it into a homophobic hit piece, and Dale reluctantly allows this. Tim is understandably and justifiably enraged about how the report turned out, and Dale gives a toothless defense about how the final edit was not his call. Things are made even more tense when Adam, the same Adam that Dale has a history with, and his partner are scheduled to be interviewed by Helen. Jeff, who has a very traditional mindset, unexpectedly joins Helen at the desk and hijacks the interview with homophobic questions, refusing to give her the chance to say anything. Dale watches the interview in stunned silence as he cries, while Tim watches in disgust as his coworkers cheer on Jeff. Once the interview is over, Helen goes to visit Dale, seeking comfort because she feels like she failed her job. But she can't help but nudge Dale for answers on how he knew Adam.
He asked me to pass on a message. He said, "Tell him I'm sorry."
Helen, it's a complicated situation between our families. I don't think there's no need to involve you in this.
Involve me in what?
I don't want to talk about it.
You have to tell me. I mean, nothing that you can say is worse than what I'm thinking in my head right now.
And see, this scene frustrates me so much. Helen is in reporter mode and will not accept Dale's attempts to avoid the topic. If you keep track of the dates that the show provides us, they have literally been dating for 3 months. Helen, you are not owed this conversation. He clearly does not feel comfortable sharing this with you. And for good reason, since she immediately asks if he's been involved with another man when he discloses an abridged version of his relationship with Adam, and then she races out of his apartment when he shamefully confesses to the kiss with Tim. Tim quickly catches on to the fact that Helen knows, as she is very passive-aggressive towards him at work. And Tim has every right to still be mad at Dale for their conversation after the kiss. He has every right to still be mad at Dale for botching the AIDS story, and yet he stops by Dale's place to check on him and make sure he's okay. Once they start talking, Tim hesitantly asks Dale if he's the first man he's done anything with, to which Dale, willingly this time, discloses his history with Adam. That they got caught by Adam's family when they were fooling around, the police became involved, and the narrative formed that Dale had forced himself on Adam. Tim is heartbroken by the story and tries to offer a life raft, reiterating what Adam said in his interview, that even with the hardships of being out, that it feels better than denying the truth.
Imagining life on the other side of something like this can be terrifying. But it might surprise you.
I've worked my whole life to be where I am.
R.I.P. to Tim for falling for the closet case that is Dale Jennings. Anyway, Tim and Dale have reached this truce. Not as close as they used to be, but there's still an ease that they have with each other. Helen is still angry with the two of them and trying to ignore them as much as possible. But then the three of them are supposed to do a story together, and it is incredibly awkward. A coworker who is also working on the story lets it slip that this is Tim's last day on the job, which honestly does not do anything to make it less awkward. But Dale reacts like a kicked puppy to the news. And then when Helen starts to have a breakdown during the interview, Dale and Tim look at each other while Helen looks to Dale. If nothing else, this moment tells me that Helen and Dale aren't going to be Endgame. Dale has been her support system all season, so she's looking to him for reassurance, and yet his immediate reaction to distress is to go to Tim. The season 1 finale ends with Dale finally stepping into the position of newsreader as Tim watches him and cries. Tim knows the gravity of Dale attaining this, that he will be under more scrutiny and will have to repress these feelings even more than he already is. It's very bittersweet, with the emphasis on bitter, as you dread how much Dale will continue to compromise himself to reach his goals. We then pick up a little over a year later at the start of season 2. Dale and Helen appear to be as strong as ever to their audience, but they frequently disagree behind the scenes, almost never being on the same page. It seems as if Tim and Dale have had no contact since he left News at 6, and yet his absence is felt. And not just because I literally watched this show for Chai Hansen, although I'm sure that magnifies the feeling. Beyond the slowly brewing conflicts between Dale and Helen, it just feels like there's something off about the newsroom in general. We soon meet Jerry, a comedian who runs a successful variety show, and he becomes part of the News at 6 crew to boost their ratings. After Jerry's first gig with News at 6, he and Dale end up drinking at a bar together, and Jerry subtly flirts with Dale. Dale picks up on this and is clearly uninterested, but very amused. He relays this interaction to Helen later in the night, hoping she'll laugh about it with him, but then she starts to panic about Dale, quote-unquote, needing intimacy with a man. Given how this interaction goes, Dale realizes he cannot talk to Helen about these things. And because Jerry becomes a steady presence in his life, he slowly becomes somewhat of a confidant for Dale to process some of his feelings with. When Jerry floats the idea of Dale and Helen getting married, Dale discloses the kiss she shared, quote, with a cameraman, and...
Did you want it to be more?
I wanted to be with Helen.
In my opinion, Dale's struggle to give an answer makes it clear that he still thinks about Tim, and there's some regrets he has about how things ended. But whether he wants more or not is irrelevant. He had already chosen Helen, meaning in his mind he could not even entertain the idea of pursuing something with another person. And now Tim has left the newsroom, meaning anything more with Tim is truly an impossibility. But then Helen runs into Tim while she's trying to get an interview.
Listen,
Contact.
Dale, Tim is here.
Tim heard. He's working for some French guy doing a documentary on Linus.
Dale is trying so hard to be nonchalant about this, but he is clearly affected by the idea of Tim being in his orbit again. And Tim is clearly affected by bumping into Helen too, as we see him watch that night's newscast. This also happens to be the night that Dale plans to propose to Helen. So, it sure is interesting that the writers had Dale take that step the exact same day that Tim re-enters his life. Helen, unsurprisingly, says no, and they break up, leading to a lot of tension between them, which they attempt to hide from their coworkers. Things get slightly hostile when Dale overhears a voicemail message left to Helen that gives the impression that she has become romantically entangled with someone else. As a result, Helen skips the Christmas party that they were supposed to attend as a couple, but guess who is there?
Graceful winner. We've all done it. I haven't done it. Righto. Up next is the award for most idiotic injury. And the award goes to Dale. Well, doesn't work without an auto cue, this guy.
This scene is so insane to me. The way Dale notices Tim, and it takes him a moment before he can pull his gaze away, that he can't help but look at Tim again. Tim's soft smile. The romantic music swelling while the dialogue fades out. Like, this scene feels like it was ripped from a rom-com. Why would the editors do that if they're not hinting at them finding their way back to each other by the end of this show? Also, the scene is even more insane when you think about the fact that Tim is there in the first place. Like, he has not worked at News at 6 for a year and a half at this point, and I'm guessing he doesn't even like most of the people who work there, given he quite literally left because of the thriving homophobia of the workplace. And yet he came to the Christmas party. Like, the one office job I had, nothing on earth would convince me to spend unpaid time around my coworkers. Tim is either the nicest, most forgiving person of all time, or he just wants to be around Dale that badly. Anyway, they have a brief chat at the party where Tim tells Dale that he's happy for his success, while Dale is barely hiding his misery over the breakup with Helen. Jerry correctly assumes that Tim is the cameraman that Dale had been involved with, and tries to coax Dale and Tim into going with him to a gay club. Tim assumes Dale won't be interested, but reluctantly accompanies them when a drunken Dale eagerly agrees to go. Tim shows sincere concern at Dale's very clear bad mental state. Meanwhile, Jerry is excited that Dale is partying with him and either completely oblivious or completely uncaring about Dale's obvious anguish. After Dale mentions the breakup, Tim tries to convince Dale to leave this environment, but Dale has no interest in talking, and he pulls Tim to the dance floor with him. Tim goes along with this at first, but when Dale attempts to initiate a kiss, Tim rebuffs him and leaves the dance floor, urging Jerry to take care of Dale while he's inebriated. And then things kind of spiral out of control after this outing. Jerry is caught in public with another man, and he goes to Dale asking for support because he knows his career is over if he loses his News at 6 job. Dale agrees to defend him to Lindsay, and initially does. Before Jerry has the chance to get on camera, Dale becomes aware of a gossip columnist trying to write a story about his relationship with Tim. Tim even tries to warn Dale about this, to which Dale panics.
If you could just say we were in a professional relationship, that would be appreciated.
I'll ignore her, but I'm not lying. I'm past that.
Did she say who fed the story?
Look, I know you're gonna deny everything. And I didn't expect anything different.
As Jerry is the only person outside of Tim and Helen who knows about Tim and Dale's history, Dale switches on Jerry and pushes for him to be removed from the News at 6 lineup. And it hit me upon my most recent rewatch that this is the Adam event TM all over again. Dale has now done to Jerry exactly what Adam did to him. He distanced himself from Jerry and is watching him get blackballed to protect himself. And as crushing as that is, the episode isn't over yet. Dale then has a private meeting with the gossip columnist.
If you print that story, you will sell a lot of copies. For one edition. I can offer you so much more. Because a great newsreader is forever. Now, if you print that story, all that's gone. But if you don't, I'll remember.
Surprisingly, Dale doesn't deny his relationship with Tim. Instead of the denial that Tim was so sure was coming and that all of us in the audience were probably bracing ourselves for, Dale pivots and follows Jerry's advice from a few episodes prior. Offer the gossip columnist a better story. Now, this is certainly a far cry from Dale accepting himself and being open about his sexuality, but it's not nothing for him to avoid the topic over his typical reaction of denial. Amazingly, Dale's speech works, and the gossip columnist decides against publishing this story. The season ends with Dale again at the news desk, this time with Helen watching him as she cries. We have very clearly seen Dale losing himself in the pursuit of this idealized life that he is trying to attain. So the only story that makes sense to me for season 3 to pursue is for Dale to realize that he doesn't actually want the life he has been working for and to reject all of this. And given how Dale repressing his attraction to men is like borderline the foundation of the show, he must learn to embrace this part of himself, right? Like, yes, the show is a drama, but I feel pretty confident it is not meant to be a tragedy. I mean, Michael Lucas, the showrunner, has talked about season 3 being cathartic, and if the show ends with Dale being even more miserable and repressed than he was in the first episode, I don't see how that would be in any way satisfying. But beyond just looking at the show from the standpoint of what makes the most sense for Dale's narrative, we also have to account for Tim's role. If Tim and Dale's relationship wasn't deeply important to the narrative, why would Tim return in season 2 at all? If Tim solely exists to make Dale's attraction to men explicit, that's already clear from season 1. And the writers could have had Dale being drawn to Jerry to indicate Dale's struggle with fitting into this heteronormative ideal. Like I said previously, Tim's absence in the first half of season 2 is noticeable. Dale and Helen have seemingly been going strong for this past year, but we can immediately see the cracks forming, and their breakup really feels like an inevitability. Then there's the fact that Dale brings up his kiss with Tim completely unprompted when he's confiding in Jerry, and that's before Helen runs into Tim and even brings him up to Dale. It's just very telling to me that Dale discusses this a full year since he last spoke to Tim. The fact that they've had a significant time apart from each other reinforces that these feelings are still there on both sides. And they still feel that connection just as strongly when they see each other at the office Christmas party.
Every time anything happened, I tell myself, that's it. It's the last time. It's out of my system.
But it's not out of his system. Dale chose Helen because of societal pressures and his terror of being rejected by his mom. Yes, he cares about Helen, and yes, he admires her and wants to learn from her. But before he has all of this external input, when given the choice of going to a party with Helen or spending a night with Tim, he was going to choose Tim. Now, I can't end this video without also discussing the season 3 teaser, as it just dropped a week ago. As I've said, Dale has been fixated on pursuing this heteronormative ideal. His position as newsreader and his relationship with Helen were helping him reach everything he's ever wanted. But he is still very clearly deeply repressed, something that isn't going to change by working in this toxic environment with Lindsay. I mean, look at the promotional poster for season 3. Dale is very clearly in a dark place, and this facade is clearly taking a toll on him. And I'm guessing he feels more alone than ever now that Helen is gone. In season 1, Tim leaves after seeing his coworker's delighted reaction to Jeff's homophobic tirade. In season 2, Helen reaches a breaking point with Lindsay and storms out when he tries to sensationalize her sensitive report about drug addiction, as well as the fact that he had repeatedly cut stories that matter to her, such as the story about the bicentennial protests. It's Dale's turn to walk out, and the season 3 trailer did not disappoint on this front as, 1, we see Dale having a tense conversation with Lindsay. 2, Dale seemingly goes to the head of the network threatening to leave his position if Lindsay isn't ousted. And 3, the tagline of season 3 being, quote, the end of an era. Like, yes, it's the end of the show, but it's also hinting, at least in my eyes, that it's the end of Dale's time at News at 6. There's also the fact we only see Tim for a glimpse in the season 2 trailer, when he is pretty prominently featured in 2 of the 6 episodes. And it's from the bar scene with Tim looking very somber and worried. And where does their dynamic in season 2 end? With Tim disappointed in Dale for choosing to continue to conform to the heteronormative script, and Dale in a full-blown panic about potentially being a news story. Meanwhile, we get a glimpse of Tim in the season 3 trailer, and what is it? It's him and Dale smiling and laughing, which could mean nothing. Anyway, Mr. Michael Lucas, they better be Endgame, or else. Thank you for listening to my deranged ramblings about this show. If you'd like to talk more about the Newsreader, please feel free to leave a comment. Clearly I have a lot of thoughts and feelings about it. Hopefully I'll see you again soon, and have a great rest of your day. Bye!